Welcome to Got Som, a wine podcast created, a couple of years ago now, by myself, Carlos Santos, Master Sommelier. I'm just a guy who created a podcast company who wanted to learn more about wine. My name is Angus O'Loughlin. Today, we're kind of doing a bit of a super study, a bit of a deeper dive into a wine that has fascinated me and was actually one of the more spoken about wine styles that we had on our Instagram at Gotsom, where people were like, I want to learn more about Cabernet Franc. Now, am I saying that wrong? Is that how you say it? Or is it Australian version Cabernet Franc? Which one do you prefer?
I like the sound of the Australian, but
Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet Franc. But Cabernet Franc is how you would say it. Yeah. I mean, it's not too different.
But is it Franc?
Franc. Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet Franc?
Cabernet Franc.
Oh, cool. There you
Cabernet
go.
Franc.
It is a Bogan wine. So this is a wine style that we're going to talk about overall.
In French, you would say Cabernet Franc.
That's right. That was my emphasis.
Cabernet Franc.
So that's where I kind of got my idea for this was that people wanted to know more about it. I thought as a wine style, this episode is going to talk about what it is, where it is, how it became from Carlos's obviously expertise. And then we're going to put it up against an Australian wine style from a very well-known Australian producer, Sorenberg, versus an old world style, which Carlos has bought from his own collection. So we're going to be trying both of those to see how different sides of the world make this particular variety. But I did make a little bit of a mistake. Carlos, what's the disclaimer?
Yeah. So it was meant to be 100% Cabernet Franc, which I never seen from Sorenberg, so I was a little bit skeptic. But yeah. So then doing the research a little bit on the website, it's actually a Cabernet Sauvignon based wine. So 30 to 40% Cabernet Sauvignon plus Cabernet Franc. So there is Cabernet Franc and Merlot. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but you bought a full Cab Franc.
Yeah, I bought a full Cab Franc. This one is Thierry Germain. It is from the Loire Valley, central north of France. The most iconic region, I would say, for 100% Cabernet Francs probably in the world.
So to put this into academic sense, if we were in a year 10 classroom, I got a C+ and Carlos got an A+, is how you would describe how we bought our bottles as homework today. A little bit about my history with Sorenberg before you get into a little bit about your bottle.
Yep.
I still believe this is the best producer of Gamay in Australia.
Yeah.
I am a fiend for the 2019 Sorenberg Gamay. If you have a bottle of it, I'll buy it off you personally. I don't have it. I think I've got their 2021, which does not taste the same. But when the mailing list came out saying they had this available, I jumped at the chance to put this on the podcast and for it to represent Australia in what I thought was Cab Franc, but more Cabernet Sauvignon. But hopefully the Master Sommelier can dissect that 30% and we can talk about it specifically. Yeah. What have you brought along?
I brought a bottle, as I said, of Thierry Germain. So this one is the Roche-Neuf, and is in fact
what?
Roche-Neuf would mean like young rocks of young rocks.
Sure.
Basically is the name of the vineyard, etc. But they are located in Saumur-Champigny, so that is a wine region or a wine AOC within the Loire Valley. Okay. So yeah, I mean, Cabernet Franc takes different names. So depending where you are, I mean, it's
Cabernet Steve.
Cabernet Steve, Cabernet Angus, Cabernet Carlos, Amelia. It depends where you got some.
Bit of a joke.
Yeah. Anyway, so Cabernet Franc, it does take a different names. I mean, it's not a strong name as Pinot Noir or Cabernet Sauvignon, that have their names, which also have synonyms, but they're not as known either. But Cabernet Franc does take different names. So, for example, in Bordeaux, it could be Vidur, or actually that's even in South America. Vidur, that's where he's known as the most. Grand Vidur, for instance, and then Gros Boucher, he takes the name of Breton. That's why I'm actually wanting to bring this up, is because in the Loire Valley it is known as Breton.
Oh, Briton?
That's right.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, you've seen that before?
That's Cab Franc.
That's Cab Franc. So that's it. You may not see it very often in bottles, because obviously you are in Europe, so the wine regions will be labeled by regions rather than varietals. But occasionally you may see Breton, and Breton would be Cabernet Franc. So that's one. And then again, I think in terms of grape variety itself, structure-wise, is thinner skins than Cabernet Sauvignon. It will ripen at least a week earlier than Cabernet Sauvignon. So again, more versatile in terms of climate as well. And disease pressure, yeah, I mean, downy mildew, powdery mildew are issues. So again, a little bit more care and a little bit more love. I mean, in general, to really prevent any diseases. So yeah, really fantastic grape variety. I think it brings amazing wines. And yeah, I mean, look, super interesting, because where this guy is located, Thierry Germain, he had as his mentors Nadine Foucault and Charlie Foucault. So and there's a huge story with these two names that I've just mentioned, because they are the two brothers that own Clos Roja. Clos Roja is what set the absolute standard for best Cabernet Franc in the world. I would say, for me, the best Cabernet Franc in the world. But Charlie Foucault, he passed away, I think 2012 from memory, or 2017 maybe, 2017 I think it is, 2017, Charlie Foucault. And I got to meet him before I came to Australia 8 years ago. So yeah, very, very, very privileged. And this guy was one of his apprentices. So very, very cool actually. But the wines are incredibly sought after. They're not overly expensive, but it is the best. It is arguably the best Cabernet Franc in the world.
For those people, that is the sound effect of all of that going over my head. But I appreciate the level of depth that we went into about that Cab Franc. And hopefully you digested that as much as I'm trying to, on the inside of my brain, store away that important information about this wine style. So thank you, Carlos, for your expertise. Let's pour both of these glasses.
Yeah.
I'll do the Sorenberg. Represent. Do me some justice, Sorenberg.
Represent.
Little swap, little trade.
Yeah. So keep your
Inside.
So yeah.
Firstly, before we do get into the wines as they're now poured and we assess them, Cabernet Franc, in your opinion, Massimiliano Carlos Santos, underrated or overrated wine?
Oh, underrated. I would say underrated. Cabernet Franc is a really, really delicious red grape variety. Is thinner skinned than Cabernet Sauvignon. So therefore, is a little bit more versatile on which climate it will grow, cooler climates and warmer climates. It is a grape variety that has about, I was just checking my notes, so about 35,000 hectares in France. There's over 7,000 hectares in Italy and 3,000 something hectares in USA. So it's widely planted. Cabernet Sauvignon, for instance, is the most widely planted red grape varieties, just for the comparison.
In the world?
In the world, yeah. Cabernet Sauvignon as the red wine.
Most resilient?
One of the most resilient, but again, is one of the most appreciated wines for some reason, and is much easier to grow than, for instance, Pinot Noir in the wider regions. So that's Cabernet Franc. I mean, it's a grape variety, again, grown in cooler climates as it is in here. North central of the Loire Valley, as you would imagine, quite a lot of green bell pepper, pyrazines, a lot of quite leafy almost type of aromas, but it can also make quite warmer, generous, a little bit more riper styles of wine. It's very, very interesting. There's a process that that is common in Beaujolais, the semi-carbonic maceration, which you've touched, I think, on when we touched on Beaujolais last year. Some of the wines can go through that process as well to just lift up the fruit, to just really reveal all of that. So really, really versatile grape. I mean, is quite wonderful, and yeah, it's at its best in this region. So
okay, well, we're going to try the Australian version first, I think. Do you think that's fair?
Let's do it.
How would you like to assess it? Because the Cab Sav is heavier, so do you want to go back to the Cab Franc first?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. I would go first with the Loire Valley.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
let's go first on the right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
The color of it is interesting. It's it's you can see through the glass.
Yeah.
It's like a deep ruby. Oh, it's not even deep. It's a ruby.
Yeah, medium ruby. I would say medium ruby. Yeah, medium ruby with a lot of vibrant red tones on the rim. Like almost like red blood rim.
This isn't showing any age, so I don't even know what year this is.
I think it's 15 from memory. I think it's one of the bottles I bought years ago. Yeah, 15.
It's not showing any age, though, is it?
No, not really. I mean, unless it's that. No, it is that lighter red tone, which starts getting onto, a few more years, starts getting onto the lighter brown tones, but it's still pretty youthful. I mean, you wouldn't say youthful for this, you would say developing.
course.
It's the wine with a little bit of age. It's not exactly primary, but is evolving into something a little bit more complex.
We
right?
should expect some secondary on this for something of 8 years.
Secondary is the oak that they would use, as you
Of
may remember,
course.
and
I mean,
tertiary, the development,
Thank you.
the more the leathery, which it can acquire,
All right, on the nose.
and it does have a little bit of tertiary. So
Ooh, smells nice.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, nice but fine, elegant. I think a few episodes ago we tried a very different style of wine. It does not smell like that at all.
Yeah, we're
No,
talking
it's,
about the natural Pinot Noir from the Nicao Farms. If you haven't listened to that episode,
Yeah.
click on it.
So
There's a couple back.
this is a much more conventional approach to winemaking, but still biodynamic. So these guys, everything they produce is biodynamic. So again, from very, very tiny production as well. Not as tiny as the Nicao was, but very, very, very highly regarded.
A lovely, lovely sense of dark fruits, but like
It's a very, very complex wine. There's a lot of layers of flavors. So
it also
from
smells like quite buttery. Like
from the black fruits, a mix of red fruit as well. There's a little bit of strawberry as well, really ripe strawberry.
the oak is definitely showing through as well.
The oak is showing through a little bit of baking spice, clove, and nutmeg. Let's try it on a palate.
Great.
Silky, fine,
Ooh, boy.
lovely acidity,
Ooh.
elegant.
High acid.
High acid. That's
that typical
medium
of the-
plus. I would say medium plus acid. It's
Sorry.
not high. If you go to
Sorry,
a
sorry.
Nebbiolo, if you go to Barolo,
When I say high acid, I am completely incorrect in saying that. I do mean medium plus,
Yeah.
but I'm surprised at how high
That's
the
it,
acid
yeah.
is.
Yeah, that's
so I'm
it.
using the wrong terminology because it's actually terminology, but I should say, wow, there's a lot of acid instead of saying high, because I would say medium plus, but it's
that's it. Yeah,
is,
that's,
and
that's
is
a
that
good way to
typical
put
of
it.
Cab Franc?
Yeah, definitely, especially from this part of the world, because it is a slightly cooler part. Imagine very green, very wild, and then soils are very, very limey. So it's all limestone soils. The caves are literally, I've been there. I've been to Clos Roja, which was obviously, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, their mentors, and they have carved vineyards underground on limestone. So it's quite beautiful. It keeps the moist, keeps like mushroom growing in the walls and stuff in this really limestone caves, basically. And the temperature is very, very consistent. So that's where these wines mature. Is really, really perfect. Couldn't get any more perfect for the storage. And that's Saumon Champigny, and that really influences as well, I think, the acidity, this limestone soils in the vineyards, which obviously helps preserve this and give a lot of minerality to these wines, definitely. So yeah, acidity is definitely, I think, a very important point.
I think you've sold the story of it, but I can smell this and taste this salty rock wall, like the cave. I can feel that essence of like,
Mushroom, a little.
yeah. Do you know how you get like
humid,
stale air?
humid and
Yeah, you go into a
damp-
cave and it's
damp,
its,
a little
its own
damp.
like bio system,
diversity.
like,
Yeah.
and it's that stuffiness of mushroom growing,
Yeah.
saltiness,
Mm-hmm.
minerality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I honestly get that on this
Yeah.
wine. But it's so beautifully formed.
Yeah.
This is a nice version. I hope Sorenberg doesn't embarrass me.
No, he won't embarrass. He's a top producer. He will be very different. I think he will be warmer. I mean, theoretically warmer in alcohol, because obviously he's a Cabernet Sauvignon based wine as well.
This doesn't taste too bad. This is like 13.
13.7. No, it wouldn't be 13.7 versus 13. So,
Quite a lot
give
more
or
than I
take,
thought.
they are exactly the same.
Now we're bringing this back to the Sorenberg from Beechworth.
Let's do it.
Cab Sav, but with a percentage of Cab Franc.
Cab Franc and Merlot. Yeah.
So apologies on Friday for texting you the wrong information.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
It smells more Bordeaux.
It does,
It's
yeah.
more, it
Because
smells...
it's a Bordeaux blend, right?
That's it, yeah. To start with, yeah. And it's a little bit, it smells warmer, it smells riper, it smells less fresh, basically. It smells like, if you go back to...
It smells like the Chateau Hall Madrak.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, because it's much closer on blend. And even the region would be slightly warmer than what you, I mean, Beechworth, I mean, I can be very too precise with the climate average from the year from Bordeaux and Beechwood, but it's probably closer than it is from the Loire Valley, you know.
Okay.
So Sorenberg would produce 3 hectares of vineyards a year. Some of the vineyards are on 560 meters altitude. And it's biodynamic. They certified by the Demeter, so an Australian certification for biodynamics. And then again, like minimum intervention as well with everything they do. Of course, they have different sites, the hills, producing more drainage, and then the altitude freshness and stuff like this.
We'll also say that we had a 2015 version, which was your Cab Franc,
a little
and this
bit
is
more
a
aged.
2021.
That's right as well.
So
that would
definitely
also
taking that into consideration when comparing these two.
100%.
In my head, this was going to be old school versus or old world versus Australian wine, and that's just not going to be the case. But certainly there's Cab Franc in here, and I think it's worth discussing.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
But this
I think
does smell like a Cab Sav.
It smells like Cabernet Sauvignon. It smells more like Bordeaux. And the nose is also really, really beautiful. I mean, don't take me wrong. It's really, really nice. I think I like. He's more towards the Oma Drac, but a different level. I think it's totally a different level. You know. For me here, it's graphite. I think where on the first one I had more wet graphite, like almost a lot of moistiness, more the mushroomy as well. Here it's drier, it's fresher, and the dry graphite. It smells like charcoal, almost a little charcoal.
There's also some flowers on this as well. I'm not good enough to tell what the flower is, but it does smell quite floral. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I think the same. A little bit of violet, maybe a more dried violet in here.
It's expressing a lot of dark, beautiful fruits. So when I think of dark fruits just from last year's season, I sort of think about it in a way of like heaviness. You know, I just think strawberry versus blueberry. The blueberry, it's not even color-based. It just feels like a heavier fruit, even though it's smaller. Or like a boysenberry, like that.
Boysenberry, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So for me, it's like this feels like it should be when comparing Cab Savs. It feels like this should be. It's not a heavy Cab Sav.
No, not at all.
On the
Very
nose,
fine.
it's expressing like lots of young, beautiful fruits that don't feel heavy or lifted. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%, 100%,
Like,
definitely.
It's a dark glass of wine. It's a Cab Sav, and for that we think high alcohol, big wines. But here it smells different to the Cab Savs that I've had before. It does smell young, lifted, fresh.
It smells. I think it's probably. I think it would be one of the closest representations to Bordeaux that I would probably have in Australia. I think even Margaret River can be a little bit warmer, riper. I mean, overall, like jammier. I feel.
Yeah, this doesn't feel jammy.
No, not at all. No, it's very fine. It's really, really fine. Very silky. I think on the palate, maybe could help having a little bit more longevity, a little bit a longer finish. I think it's pronounced until a certain amount of time, and then it fades after a few seconds. So I think it could have a little bit more concentration in that sense, but it's really beautiful. It's very, very silky as well. Definitely more concentrated. And then to compare again, I mean, if you are to compare to a Coonawarra, for example, South Australia Cabernet Sauvignon, you can't really, because the Coonawarras are typically way more greeny, way more of that minty and eucalyptus, and sometimes that really strong peppers aromas, while here it's layered, it's beautiful, it's very silky on the palate, fine grain tannins as well. A lot of black fruit, as you say, a touch of violet, which is characteristic, which is typical from the Cabernet Franc. For me, I pick a lot of minerality, a lot of graphite as well in this wine.
I'm going to give you my idiot assessment.
It's beautiful, actually.
The Cab Franc,
what a treat,
is right now showing better. If I was just to compare the quality of them both, the Cab Franc is in a better spot. For the first time talking about it, I feel like I understand that I would taste this and go, it needs longer. The Sorenberg.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm
21
tasting this,
again. It's,
yeah, I know that's obvious, but some wines really present well early, and even Cab Savs, like there's wines that are like ready to drink. This feels like we've done an injustice by opening it a little bit.
I agree.
And I can taste that because the balance for me is a little bit off. The alcohol's quite high. The tannins aren't as on the same level. Like, okay, so I would say alcohol high, medium plus to high. I would say tannins medium, and then I would say acid medium, bordering medium plus, but then they're still out of whack. But I feel like with time,
it will settle.
All of this will settle out. And
Definitely.
Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with your judgment. I just think alcohol, it's I think you said alcohol medium. I think
I said medium plus.
No, sorry, tannins. You said medium. I think tannins are a little bit more pronounced. It's just that the whole structure is pretty elevated. So the tannins are less perceptible, but the tannins are there. They're quite firm, and they actually really help bring up a lot the wine, in my
Still
opinion.
not getting it past medium, maybe medium plus.
Medium plus, yeah.
You're right. I'm just saying I can't get there because there are the other factors on my immature palate that are coming into play. But I do sense that this is a really high-end wine. And compared to being lucky enough to try the wines, and that's how we do feel about last season, even though we are trying wines that are a different price point.
We have not tried anything like this last year.
Yeah, but it's also nice to be able to have that as a comparison and a base to be able to go, oh yeah, the Coonawarra wins, or do you know what's a better example? The Felix.
Vas Felix from Western Australia, definitely.
Which was a quite a nice wine at that price point. But even here, I can tell the difference in quality of wine.
Definitely,
even though that was a great bottle for the value.
Definitely. I mean, look, this is coming from not a vineyard on its own 3 hectare. I think the whole production is 3 hectare. So of the Cabernet Sauvignon or of the Gamay or of the Chardonnay or of everything they produce. 3 hectare, it's tiny. It's really, really, really little.
Well, I actually got 2 bottles of this. So what I'll do is I'll if we're still doing this podcast in 5 years, I'll bring it back up. We'll bring it back up.
I'm keen.
But overall, this episode is about Cab Franc. I think that it is a wine that I'm not seeing on enough. This is Australian based, Melbourne based, to be honest. Enough wine lists. I think it's a wine that people aren't talking about enough, that if it was on your wine list, people wouldn't feel comfortable or have enough knowledge about getting a glass of. I can understand that people will have it by the bottle, but I don't think people buy enough wine by the bottle to really understand or explore wine enough, that I just hope that there are some, Australian little wine bars that are opening up Cab Franc and pushing people towards give this a shot. It's, an underrated glass of wine.
Yeah, I really think it's super underrated. I think it's not like the Pinot Noir. It's not as full as Cabernet Sauvignon. Somewhere in between, it's a more medium red body, medium red bodied grape variety. So it can be really, really versatile. This wine, you would match this with a cheese board and charcuterie every day of the week, with a beef tartare every day of the week. You would match this with beef. You would match this with lamb. It's so versatile. Wine. Yeah, really, really versatile, because the tannins are not super high. They're not either low. Acidity is there, it's fresh, and including the Cabernet Sauvignon, the same thing. It's actually really, really fine. It's a beautiful bottle of wine. I think this is a treat. I seriously think like those 2 bottles of wine put together, even though it's 21 versus a 2015, I think it's. I wish I would have the the Sorenberg with the same age to really compare. I think price range are probably about the same. Yeah, it was a very, very good tasting. I'm very pleased with what we've tasted.
This wasn't
from
a bad
both
day.
wines.
Yeah,
from
true.
both wines.
Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Cab Franc. If you are a small wine shop or wine bar and you are serving Cab Franc by the bottle, make sure you head to our Instagram and let us know. Tell me in the DMs. We'll give you a shout out. We want people to go and try this wine without having to commit to the whole bottle. And all across Australia, not just Melbourne. Also, a big shout out to our 2 producers today for providing us with some great examples. Thank you, Carlos, for bringing this out of your own collection. Thank you very much to Sorenberg for providing just good wine. A really great. This is a wine
world renowned, and every restaurant should have a couple of bottles.
Head to our Instagram at Gotsom. I've actually pinned a post, which means if you click on our profile, it's the one that's in the top left of our screen. And we are asking you guys, what is your favorite wine? So we've asked you to tag your favorite producers, and then we are following all of those producers, every single one of them. And then we're going to go and buy some of those wines, probably up to 4. And on a future episode of Got Some, we are going to be trying our listeners, you guys, your favorite wines from your favorite producers. So make sure you head to Instagram, the pinned post, leave a comment, tag your favorite winery, and we could be trying them very, very soon in this season 2 of Got Some. Until then, subscribe, click the little bell that tells you when we're notified, and yeah, share this with your friends, leave a review, all of that good stuff that you hear on every other podcast. We appreciate you. Salud.
See you then. Thank you.
Your Cap Franc is delicious, by the way.
Pretty good,
Yeah.